The galaxy is vast, filled with countless species, each unique in their cultures and beliefs. At the heart of this diverse expanse stood the Veleth, a race of towering giants, revered for their intelligence, strength, and warrior traditions. These beings were once feared and respected by the Coalition, a group of intergalactic species formed to maintain order in the galaxy. But their strength had always been a double-edged sword. The Veleth were powerful, but their size and capability made other species nervous. Many believed that they were too dangerous, that their dominance in any conflict would threaten the balance of power. Then came the cataclysm. A disaster that no one had seen coming, the kind of event that could break even the strongest civilizations. A planetary shift, violent, unyielding, rendered the Veleth homeworld nearly uninhabitable. Entire cities crumbled, their once proud temples reduced to rubble, their colossal structures bent and shattered. The Veleth, those indomitable giants, found themselves scattered across the desolation of what was once their thriving home. The destruction was absolute, leaving the Veleth weakened and vulnerable. The Coalition saw this as an opportunity, not to help but to rid the galaxy of what they considered a threat. In closed chambers, far from the chaos, decisions were made. Rescuing the Veleth would be costly, and to the Coalition, there was no benefit in saving a race that had always walked the fine line between ally and enemy. With cold pragmatism, the Coalition voted to abandon them, leaving the giants to fend for themselves on their shattered world. But among the Coalition was humanity. Humans were new to the intergalactic scene, not as advanced or powerful as other species, but known for their resilience and their often inconvenient sense of morality. Where others saw danger, the humans saw an opportunity to act on their principles. It wasn't about gaining allies or securing power. It was about doing what was right. And to them, leaving the Veleth to die was wrong. Against the advice of the Coalition, a small group of humans made the decision to intervene. It wasn't about military might or political maneuvering. It was simple: the Veleth deserved a chance at survival. No species, no matter how feared, should be abandoned in their darkest hour. Among the humans was a diplomat, a leader who had always believed in the value of life, regardless of size or strength. The decision to rescue the Veleth wasn't an easy one. Resources were limited, and the mission was fraught with danger. The Veleth homeworld, now a place of unpredictable environmental hazards and crumbling infrastructure, posed challenges even the most seasoned rescue teams would hesitate to face. But this human team didn't hesitate. They prepared with what they had, knowing that this mission wasn't about personal glory or galactic approval. It was about saving a race that the galaxy had turned its back on. They believed, with a quiet resolve, that life was worth fighting for, no matter the risk. As the humans set out, the whispers of disapproval from the Coalition grew louder. Species that had once welcomed humanity now looked at them with disdain. They were warned: abandon the mission, or face the consequences. But the humans pressed on. This was bigger than politics, bigger than alliances. This was about standing up for what no one else would. Approaching the Veleth homeworld, the human rescue team was immediately met with the reality of the destruction. What had once been a planet filled with towering structures and bustling life was now a landscape of ruin. The air was thick with ash, and the ground trembled beneath their feet. The planet, once a symbol of Veleth power, was now a graveyard of their past glory. Landing was no easy task. Every moment was a fight against the planet's unstable atmosphere. Violent storms tore through the skies, and the remnants of once grand buildings threatened to collapse at any moment. The human team had prepared for this, but no amount of preparation could fully account for the unpredictability of the terrain. Still, they pressed forward. They were determined to find survivors, no matter the odds. As they ventured deeper into the heart of the ruined planet, the weight of the Coalition's abandonment became clear. The Veleth had not only been abandoned physically but also in spirit. They had been written off, their lives deemed unworthy of rescue. The humans knew they were likely the last hope these giants had, and that knowledge drove them forward through the chaos and destruction that surrounded them. The Coalition had washed their hands of the Veleth. They saw them as a problem solved, a threat neutralized by nature's hand. But the humans saw more. They saw a chance to prove that life, in all its forms, was worth saving, no matter how dangerous or misunderstood. And in the crumbling remains of a once great civilization, they knew they were about to find out if their belief in second chances could truly make a difference. The human team, led by a determined commander, prepared for the descent onto the Velith homeworld. There was no backing out now. The coalition's warnings rang in their ears, but the mission had moved beyond politics. It was about a promise humanity had made to themselves, that they would not stand by and watch another species die, no matter the danger. The landing was difficult. The once vibrant atmosphere of the Velith homeworld was now chaotic, with violent electrical storms and seismic activity threatening their every move. As the shuttle touched down on the cracked, unstable surface, the gravity of the situation became even clearer. The planet was fighting them at every turn, as though even nature itself had given up on the Velith. Yet the humans pushed forward. Their base of operations was set up in the remnants of what appeared to have once been a thriving city. Now, it was nothing but ruins, the shattered symbols of a race that had once dominated the galaxy. The buildings that had once reached toward the stars were reduced to hollowed-out shells, mere shadows of their former selves. It was a chilling reminder of the fragility of power and the cold indifference of the universe. The team, equipped with the best technology humanity had, started scanning the area for signs of life. Their mission was clear: find any surviving Velith and offer assistance. The Coalition might have deemed this mission reckless, but for the humans, it was a moral imperative. They had to know that someone, something, had survived the catastrophe. It didn't take long for the hostility of the environment to make itself known. The ground itself seemed to shift and tremble beneath their feet, and the winds carried debris that could easily tear through their gear if they weren't careful. Every step forward was a battle, but the team knew they had to keep moving. This was a planet on the brink, and their time was limited. As they navigated through the ruins, their equipment picked up a signal, weak but unmistakable. There was a survivor. Moving quickly, they followed the source of the signal deeper into the city's heart. The ruins became denser, the shadows longer, and the oppressive weight of the planet's destruction bore down on them. But with every step, they were closer to their goal. And then they saw it. A massive figure, crumpled among the debris. A Velith giant, larger than any human could have imagined, lay before them. The giant was alive, but barely. Its body was covered in injuries, and the once vibrant skin of the Velith had become ashen and cracked. The Velith had always been known for their strength, but this one was clearly weakened, both physically and emotionally. They had been left to die. The human team approached cautiously. This was the moment they had been preparing for, yet nothing could have prepared them for the sight of a giant so reduced. The Velith, once mighty and indomitable, was now vulnerable. It groaned in pain, eyes barely open, but it sensed the humans' presence. At first, it flinched away, mistaking them for enemies or scavengers. It had every reason to believe that no one had come to save it. After all, the Coalition had abandoned them. Why should these small, fragile beings be any different? But the humans weren't here to harm it. Slowly, gently, they extended help, offering medical aid, food, and most importantly, words of assurance. They were not like the others. They were not here to finish what the disaster had started. They were here to save the giant, to do what no other species had dared. The Velith was hesitant. It had suffered too much, and trust was hard to come by. These humans were different, smaller, weaker in body, but their actions were not those of conquerors or opportunists. The Velith could sense something deeper, a resolve that went beyond self-interest. Still, years of weariness and isolation could not be undone in an instant. The giant watched them carefully, too tired to resist but not yet willing to believe in the possibility of rescue. As the humans worked to stabilize the giant, they began to understand just how much the Velith had lost. This was a being who had seen their entire civilization crumble, who had been left behind by those who once feared their power. The loneliness and bitterness were palpable, even through the giant's pain. The Velith had been warriors, protectors of their world, and now they were nothing but remnants of a once great race, clinging to life on a dying planet. And yet, as the humans continued their work, something shifted. The Veleth giant, though still weak and wary, began to respond. Perhaps it was the gentle persistence of the humans, or perhaps it was the realization that they were indeed different from the rest of the galaxy. Slowly, the giant's defenses lowered. There was still suspicion in its eyes, but it allowed the humans to help it, allowed them to dress its wounds and provide nourishment. Trust was not immediate, but the first seeds had been planted. As night fell on the Veleth homeworld, the humans set up camp beside the giant. It was still too weak to move on its own, and the humans knew they would need time to fully heal it. But for the first time in what felt like an eternity, the Veleth was not alone. It was not abandoned. The humans, tired but resolute, settled in for the night, knowing that their mission had just begun. They had found a survivor, but now they had to convince it that there was still hope. It was more than a rescue operation, it was a battle for the very soul of a species. And in the quiet moments of that long night, beneath the stars that still shone through the dust and ash, there was a flicker of understanding between the humans and the giant. They had come not just to save a life, but to remind the Veleth that they were not monsters to be feared, nor relics to be forgotten. They were still worthy of survival. As dawn broke on the ruined world, the Veleth giant stirred, weak but alive. The human team continued their work, never pausing for long, knowing that the fragile trust they had built could easily be shattered. The planet's instability was worsening, and it was clear that staying here for too long would spell disaster for all of them. The priority now was simple: move the giant to safety. But it wasn't as easy as getting the Veleth to simply stand up and walk away. The injuries were severe, and more than that, the giant carried the weight of abandonment, a bitterness that clouded every action. The humans worked carefully, trying to encourage the giant to move, to trust them. It was a delicate balance between pushing and patience, knowing that any misstep could bring back the suspicion. The Veleth, despite being physically imposing, showed signs of emotional exhaustion. For all its strength, it had been reduced to a state of vulnerability, and accepting help wasn't something that came easily. It had been abandoned, written off as a lost cause, and that was something that cut deeper than any wound. In the midst of these efforts, the danger of the planet loomed closer. The seismic activity was growing stronger, and the team's scanners showed that time was running out. To stay meant risking everyone's lives, including the giants. There was no room for hesitation anymore. As one of the tremors shook the ground violently, the Veleth finally responded, forcing itself to rise with great effort, towering over the humans. The scene would have been intimidating to anyone else, but the humans stood firm, their resolve unshaken. They had come this far, and they weren't about to back down now. As they moved, it became clear just how far the giant had fallen from its former glory. Once the proud protector of its people, it now stumbled, each step labored, its body barely able to support its own weight. The humans assisted however they could, guiding the giant with a mixture of tactical precision and sheer determination. And with every step, the bond between them grew stronger, though either side openly acknowledged it. There was no time for words, no need for grand speeches, just action. But the planet wasn't done with them yet. As they made their way through the ruins, another group appeared on the horizon, opportunistic scavengers, drawn to the destruction, seeking to plunder whatever remained of the Veleth civilization. They were a merciless group, armed and dangerous, ready to kill anyone in their way. The humans knew they couldn't fight them off alone. They lacked the firepower and the numbers to take on such a force. This was the turning point for the Veleth giant. It had always been a warrior, and now, in the face of this new threat, something deep inside it stirred. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about defending those who had refused to abandon it. The giant's eyes, once clouded with doubt and despair, now burned with a renewed sense of purpose. The humans had saved its life, and now it was time to repay that debt. Without hesitation, the Veleth charged forward, using the last of its strength to engage the scavengers. The ground shook beneath its feet as it unleashed its fury, and the scavengers quickly realized they had underestimated their target. The giant, though weakened, still possessed the raw power of its species, and the humans took advantage of the chaos, working together with the giant in a coordinated effort to neutralize the threat. It was a brief but intense battle, and by the end of it, the scavengers had been driven away, leaving the humans and the Velith victorious. In the aftermath, there was no celebration, no cheering. There was only the quiet understanding that something had changed. The Velith, who had once believed itself abandoned by the galaxy, had found allies in the most unlikely place. It had fought alongside the humans, not because it had to, but because it wanted to. The humans had proven that they were different, that they valued more than just their own survival. But the battle had taken its toll. The giant was visibly exhausted, and it was clear that its strength wouldn't last much longer. The humans, realizing the severity of the situation, moved quickly to stabilize it, working with a renewed sense of urgency. They knew now that they had earned the Velith's trust, but trust alone wouldn't save it. They needed to get off the planet, and soon. With the immediate danger past, the team regrouped, assessing their options. The coalition's forces were still nearby, likely monitoring their every move, waiting for them to fail. But failure wasn't an option. They had come too far, and now, with the Velith on their side, they had a chance. The team's commander, who had led them this far, made the call to push forward to their extraction point. The Velith, though weakened, agreed to keep moving, determined to survive alongside the humans who had risked everything for it. The journey wasn't easy. Every step brought new challenges as the planet continued to crumble around them. But now, for the first time, the Velith was walking with purpose. It wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about redemption, about proving that even a species as feared and misunderstood as the Velith could have a future. And the humans, though small in comparison, had shown that strength didn't come from size or power, it came from the will to stand by those who needed it most. By the time they reached the extraction point, the planet was on the verge of collapse. The shuttle arrived just in time, and as the humans and the Velith boarded, there was a sense of relief, but also of something greater. This wasn't just a rescue mission anymore. It was the beginning of something new, a bond between two species that had been forged in the fires of adversity. The coalition would never understand why the humans had risked so much for the Velith. They would question the logic, the cost, the danger. But to the humans, none of that mattered. They had made a choice to save a life, to stand up for those who had been forgotten. And in doing so, they had shown the galaxy that true strength came from compassion, from refusing to give up on anyone, no matter how dire the situation. As the shuttle left the atmosphere, the Velith giant looked out at its ruined world one last time. It had lost everything, but it had gained something far more valuable, a future. And it was the humans who had given that future to them, proving once and for all that they were more than just a small, fragile species in a vast galaxy. They were something far greater. As the shuttle ascended from the collapsing planet, the weight of everything that had transpired settled in. The Velith giant, once filled with nothing but bitterness and loss, now sat quietly, its massive form still showing signs of exhaustion, but there was a quiet strength in its eyes. The humans, though relieved to have escaped, were equally aware that this mission was far from over. The immediate danger of the planet was behind them, but there was still the matter of what lay ahead. The coalition's disapproval was not something that could be easily dismissed. The humans had defied orders, risked everything, and brought back a Velith giant, something the coalition had deemed too dangerous to be worth saving. There would be consequences, and they were fully aware of it. But none of that seemed to matter at the moment. What mattered was the life they had saved, the bond they had formed with a being who had every reason to hate and mistrust them. The giant, once a symbol of fear and power, was now an ally, one who had fought alongside them not because of duty, but because of shared survival. As the shuttle approached the human outpost, the team's commander prepared for the inevitable confrontation with the coalition. They had gone against every directive, had jeopardized relations with the other species, but they had done it for the right reasons. The commander knew that explaining this to the coalition would be nearly impossible. They valued logic and strategy over compassion, and saving a Velith would likely be seen as a waste of resources. But the humans weren't going to apologize. They hadn't just saved a life, they had proven something much more profound. When the shuttle landed, the coalition was already waiting, a small contingent of representatives from various species, all of them eager to understand why the humans had risked so much for a single survivor. The tension was palpable, but the humans didn't flinch. They had anticipated this, had known from the beginning that their actions would be met with skepticism and perhaps even punishment. But standing beside the Velith giant, the commander felt a surge of resolve. They weren't going to back down. The coalition's questions came swiftly, laced with disbelief and a hint of accusation. Why had the humans disregarded their orders? Why had they chosen to save a Velith, of all species? Did they not understand the potential risks involved? The commander listened calmly, knowing that these questions were coming from a place of fear. The Velith had always been seen as a threat, their sheer size and power making them a force to be reckoned with. But the commander had seen something different in the giant, something that the coalition had refused to acknowledge. When it was their turn to speak, the commander didn't offer excuses or apologies. Instead, they spoke simply, explaining the core of what had driven them to act. The Velith, they said, deserved a chance. No species, no matter how powerful or feared, should be left to die simply because of what they might represent. The humans had chosen to save the Velith because they believed in the value of life, in the possibility of redemption, and in the power of alliances built on trust rather than fear. The coalition representatives listened, their expressions hard to read. For many of them, the Velith had always been a dangerous unknown, a race that could not be fully controlled. But now, standing before them, was proof that the Velith were not just brutes or monsters. They were survivors, beings who could form bonds and make choices just like any other species. The giant's presence, silent yet imposing, said more than words ever could. The coalition wasn't convinced, not entirely. They were still cautious, still wary of what the Velith might become. But for now, they agreed to allow the giant to stay with the humans, under their watchful eye. It was a small victory, but it was enough. The humans had done what no other species had dared. They had reached out to a Velith in its moment of weakness and shown it compassion. And in return, they had gained something far more valuable than the coalition's approval. In the days that followed, the Velith slowly began to heal, both physically and emotionally. It spent time among the humans, observing their ways, learning from them. And the humans, in turn, learned from the giant. They realized that strength came in many forms, and that true power wasn't just about physical dominance. It was about the ability to protect, to care for others, and to build something lasting in the face of adversity. The bond between the humans and the Velith grew stronger with each passing day. Where once there had been suspicion and mistrust, there was now mutual respect. The Velith, once feared and misunderstood, had found allies in humanity, a species that had defied the odds to offer them a second chance. And the humans, through their actions, had shown the galaxy that sometimes the greatest strength lies not in what you can destroy, but in what you can save. As word of the humans' actions spread, other species began to take notice. Some were still wary, unsure of what to make of the alliance between humanity and the Velith. But others saw it as a sign of hope, a reminder that even in a galaxy filled with conflict and fear, there were still those willing to take risks for the sake of compassion and understanding. The humans had proven that they were more than just newcomers to the galactic stage. They were leaders in their own right, capable of changing the course of history through their actions. In the end, the Velith giant stood tall once more, not as a warrior or a conqueror, but as a symbol of what could be achieved when species set aside their fears and worked together. And the humans, though small in comparison, had shown that their greatest strength lay in their ability to see beyond the surface, to recognize the potential for good in even the most unlikely of places. The coalition would continue to watch, but for now, the humans had earned a measure of respect. They had saved a life, yes, but more importantly, they had shown that compassion and courage were the true forces that shaped the galaxy. And as the Velith giant walked among them, healed and whole once again, the humans knew that they had done more than just complete a mission. They had made a difference, a real, lasting difference that would be felt for years to come.